Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's welcome today's speaker, Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott. I'm an alcoholic. Danny, thank you for asking me to speak. He already left. I could just actually spend the next 20 minutes thanking people because I know almost everybody here, but in particular Lionel. Thank you for saving my life. And somebody, I think it was Mike, was talking about family, get a new family. This is my family here. I came here for the wrong reasons. I came here for a girl. If anybody, Colin and Charlie, if you guys came here for a girl, that's why I got here. I didn't have a desire to stop drinking. I just had a desire for her to stop yelling at me. And she did. She didn't talk to me again after that meeting. And at that meeting, a guy about as old as Lionel said to me, "Why are you here?" And I said, Stacy. He says, "Where's Stacy?" I said, "She's home. She's not talking to me." And he gave me $20. I'm not going to give you guys anything. He says, "You might as well leave and go back to the bar. If you're not here for yourself, you're not going to stay and you're not going to get well. So we have plenty of seats here. Usually in February or March, there'll be even more seats." He says, "There's plenty of seats here. So whenever you're done, you can come back." And I thought, hey, this is Assholes Anonymous, not Alcoholics Anonymous. That guy was brilliant. He was right. I wasn't there for myself, and I stumbled in a couple more times, and then I got sober June 23rd, 05. But I still wasn't done. So I'm supposed to talk about what it was like and what happened and what it's like now. I don't need to spend a lot of time on what it was like. But what happened is I got sober June 23rd, 05, and then about 21 days later, I got arrested, which is also not a very big thing around here. Every other person here has been, there's probably 6 people that could sit in the corner that haven't been arrested here. But prior to that experience, I thought drunk driving was a big deal. But since I wasn't quite done, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I found where that was in the book, which I had no intention of reading that book. I read the smaller book that Don has here, the 12 and 12, because I thought it was like the Cliff Notes. Because I really wasn't planning on staying very long. And I'm here, February 15th or whatever the hell it is, 2017. And I've been coming to this room since August 28th, 2005. But I wasn't done. So I got arrested, and my bail was no bail, then it was $1 million bail, 4 felonies, 45 years in prison. I think I was supposed to get out in 2052. So I got out a little bit sooner. And I got out a little bit sooner because of the people here. So when Mike was talking about family, I didn't know anybody here. I was from Burbank, and I'm not welcome in Burbank. But I am welcome here. Everybody here is welcome. Sarah, thank you for coming. I didn't want to be here, and there was a speaker that I had speak for me when I was secretary here. When I was secretary, I was living in a halfway house because I had violated parole, because I didn't listen to the parole agent any better than I listened to my sponsor, who I love. And he has 33 years. 33 days seemed to be impossible, not 33 years. Just not drinking. This is a 3-day weekend. This is a great excuse, George, to drink. I'm not even black, but I would have celebrated Martin Luther King Day. My goal here is actually the other black guy besides Don is Mike White. If Mike White can stay awake for the whole meeting, then I'll think that I've done a good job. Those of you that don't know Mike White, look for him after the meeting. He's usually taking a nap about now, but he was hoping I'd say something. So I got sober June 23rd, 05, and I got arrested July 13th, 05, sober. But if anybody's read the book, and if you're new, maybe Charlie hasn't read it yet, I wasn't reading that book, and I'm 21 days sober, and I get arrested, and I go to the men's federal prison downtown LA, and on the second day, somebody that looked like Janet, it was hard to see because I was in solitary confinement. You have to bend down and look through a little slot, like I was Osama bin Laden. And she said, would you like something to read? I said, sure. Do you have anything by John Grisham? That's the other reason I kept coming back. People laughed, and I thought, what the fuck are they laughing about? I said, do you have anything by John Grisham? She goes, do you have any idea where you are? I said, I'm in jail. She goes, no, you're not in jail. You're in prison. There's a big difference. I came to find out there's a big, big difference. So I was in solitary confinement for 40 days, like Lent, and I was a good Catholic altar boy. I'm no longer a good Catholic altar boy. So she said, we have 2 books. We don't have anything by John Grisham, but we have 2 books, and I said, I'll take them both. So this was one. The other one was the Bible. And, you know, I'm only here because of Lionel, and a lot of people here, and God. But I started with the Bible. There was no, I'll swear anyways, there's no fucking way I was going to read this book. But when you're locked up for 40 days by yourself, and I was locked up with John Curry or Mark or anybody else, I'm talking about the Packers-Dallas game today, or the girl that broke my heart, or how could George be sober for 54 years? But I didn't have anybody to talk to other than myself, and I wasn't very good company. Pete says that. You know, he has problems and he lives alone. I could just spend 20 minutes talking about the other people here. But I was locked up and I started reading the Bible, and with all due respect to God, the Bible's a really tough read. So I started reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but as my sponsor could tell you, I did everything wrong to be standing here. I didn't start with the 164 pages. I started with the 42 stories. But in that little room, I didn't even have to start at the beginning of the 42 stories, because they're broken up into 3 sections. So I started with the last section, because it says, those that have nearly lost it all. Because I expected to die in that room. First my bail was no bail, then it was $1 million bail. So I didn't think that I was ever going to get out of that room. I got out of that room 40 days later. My family, not you guys, my other family, put up their houses so I could get out. And one of the bail conditions, although I was sober, was to go to rehab. And the rehab van, if anybody came here in a rehab van, it's possible to stay. I didn't want to be here. I was on an ankle bracelet, and one of the conditions was to go to rehab. I explained to the federal judge that I was sober, and he said, you have to go to rehab. I said, but I'm sober. He says, do you want to get out? I would have blown the bail up to get out of that prison cell. And I really didn't want to blow the bail up. But I would have done anything to get out of that prison cell. I got out and I went to rehab, and I wasn't a very nice guy in rehab. I bitched and complained and was miserable, but the rehab man took me to this building. I could get my mail here, 901 Haverford, Pacific Palisades, 90272. I'm here every day like Michael. For a guy that had 3 DUIs, that owned a cab company, that never went to an AA meeting. I went to the Irish bar in Toluca Lake, took the court card, passed it to a guy at the other end, said, just pass these cards down. I have plenty of different color pens. We'll be done with this AA shit in 5 minutes. And I thought I was brilliant. You know, I looked at the front of the book and it said anonymous, and I thought, they won't even know. Why would I want to go waste my time at Alcoholics Anonymous? So I didn't have any desire to stay sober. Tradition 3 says you have to have a desire to stop drinking. I didn't have a desire to stop drinking. I had a desire to talk to Stacy. That was it. That didn't work out. So God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. He locked me up in that little room, and I read those stories again and again and again. And the stories gave me some sense of hope that I might get out of that room. I'd never been to Pacific Palisades because I drank a lot. So I thought I might get another DUI if I went all the way from Burbank over here. There's not even a lot of places here to drink, which is kind of fucked. But, you know, I got here, and when I got out of rehab, I went to sober living because I wasn't welcome in Burbank. And I came back here because the people were not because of the steps. It took a long time to do the steps. Just not drinking, Colin, was an impossible thing. I wanted to drink. Now I thought, good reasons to drink. You know, chapter 2 talks about there's a solution. My solution was just to drink. And then I found some cocaine so I could drink even more. And that didn't work out very well for me. Maybe it worked out for somebody else. But I got here in that rehab van. I had to look it up this morning, August 28th, 2005. And I stayed. And then when I got out of rehab, a bail condition was I had to stay in sober living. And the only way I could leave sober living was to go to an AA meeting. So suddenly, for a guy that refused to go to an AA meeting, they were fascinating. I'd go to 5 a day. The sober living guy was pissed off. He said, there's a curfew. I said, I'm going to the Marina Center at 11 o'clock. Anything to get out of that house. And I go to AA meetings, and they have crazy people like me talking, and I was fascinated. They seem to have gotten better. The birthday people talked about people getting better. Stevie, he used to always make me laugh. He still makes me laugh once in a while. Always has. They were all like a cast of Saturday Night Live characters, and I was fascinated to come back here. And I never wanted to go. You know, one of my first meetings before I got in that little trouble was at Radford Hall, which wasn't on Radford, it was on Ventura, and I thought, they're so effing stupid they don't even know where these places are. It used to be on Radford. Now it's on Victory, and they still call it Radford. And I'm at that meeting, and a guy like Howard was speaking, and he was crazy, a little bit like Howard. And just before the meeting, a couple vans, like 2 vans pulled in, and I said, what's just those people? They carpool here? And he says, no, they're from PIP. And if you're old like George, before Kinko's, there was a place called PIP, Postal Instant Printing. And I said, Howard, they're all drunk printers? And he looked at me like I was the idiot. And I was. And I said, printers must really have a tough life. He said, no, they're from a rehab in Sun Valley called People in Progress. It was about a half a block from my office in Sun Valley. I wondered why those people were outside smoking all day long. He says, they're here to get better. And I thought, I'm here to get Stacy back. I'm not here to get better. And this isn't going to work for me. So God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. Those 40 days changed my life. And I got out, and the people I met here, you know, there are people here that I know that work at rehabs. In the rearview mirror, the rehabs helped me. What really helped me was these people in this building, in this room, and lots of rooms, but this room was like ground zero to me. And my life changed when they talk about commitments or service, and poor Danny was up here begging people to do commitments. I didn't want to do anything, but the secretary was cute. She's not here, so I could talk about her. One of Ross's sponsees. So I thought, she said, you know, the guy making the coffee here is going to jail. I still confuse jail and prison then. He's going to jail, so does anybody else want to do the coffee? I thought that meant come here and pull the coffee out and plug it in. So I stuck my hand up, and she said, are you sure? I said, sure. Well, why not? It can't be that tough. I go to Starbucks. She says, I'll see you here next Sunday at 6:30. I said, 6:30? What are you talking about? The meeting starts at 10. She goes, no, there's another meeting in that room where those people are. It starts at 7:30. You need to get all that stuff done before those people. Those people are jerks. Some of those jerks are still in the 10 o'clock meeting because they have nothing to do except go to 8 a.m. So I came, and in the coffee commitment, except for the 274 days I was in federal prison, I've been doing here since November 2005. I don't want to stop. It's not very good coffee. But the coffee has kept me sober, and I didn't know anybody here. You know, I used to make silly signs like, you know, Bill Wilson hates decaf, and decaf is for Al-Anon, and Pete would throw the signs away because he said, you know, he said, Scott, this is serious stuff here. And it is serious stuff. Lydia and I were here for a funeral yesterday. And next Sunday, a lot of us are going to be here celebrating Jonathan Klein, who was a big part of this meeting and ran central office. And it's a privilege to do that. Gary took a cake last week, and he talked about how much Jonathan meant to him. You know, I didn't know any of the people here, and they've all changed my life. John said, speak from the heart. I wrote notes, and I forgot to look at them. So I lost my train of thought. So I hope, Sarah, that your life is as fucked up as mine was. It's not now. Because I had to be desperate and willing in the circumstances to change my life, and that worked for me. But the two stories that I'll finish with that changed my life was my bottle my resentments in me. And I didn't understand the story, but in that story, it talks about a drunk camp, which are now called rehabs, and they're a lot more expensive than drunk camps. And two people like Lydia and I ran that camp. And at the end of a year, I said, Lydia, how many people are still sober from this camp? And she said, let me count. And she's not real sharp, so it took her a while. But on page 443, it talks about that, and it says, she says, 178 people came through here. And I was reading this in that solitary confinement prison cell. I said, how many people are still sober? And this is, I'm paraphrasing it, but she said, let me check. She's still slow, so that took a while. But she came back and she said, no one's sober. No one. So I would pray to God to get out of that room and think if I could get out, I could help one person. I could do better than that. One. I didn't understand that the two people, like working with others that stayed sober, were Lydia and Scott, the two people that were, not us per se, but the two people that ran that drunk camp stayed sober, were trying to help other people, and probably planted the seed to get sober with a lot of people. So that's not included in the story, but that story changed my life, and I would pray relentlessly to get out to help one other person. And unfortunately for me, I wasn't good at reading the Bible, but God was listening to me. So I spent a lot of my time helping other people. And then the other story that I'll close with is the first story in the book, Dr. Bob's story. And I'm just going to read one paragraph, and then I'll stop talking so we can go watch football. One of the other ways I got here was drinking and snorting coke and watching football. But in the back of Dr. Bob's story, and I would read this instead of the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer is 25 words, and the only prayer I knew when I got here was God help me, which was 3 words. But there are 3 words in this little paragraph that changed my thought about coming here, which I had to be forced to stay here. It says, if you think you're an atheist, an agnostic, a skeptic, or have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what's in this book that I didn't want to read, I feel sorry for you. If you still think you're strong enough to beat the game alone, that's your affair. But if you really and truly want to quit drinking liquor for good and for all, and sincerely feel that you must have some help, we know that we have an answer for you. And then the 3 words were, it never fails. Unlike when Roz read chapter 5, rarely. That's all I saw in that paragraph. It never fails. That if you just do the work here, and I remember meeting Kale when I was at Rodeo, which is also not on Rodeo. I don't know what's wrong with you people. If you do the work here, it never fails. I know lots of people that never drank again or used again. It never fails if you go about it with one half the zeal you have been in the habit of showing when you were getting another drink. Your Heavenly Father will never let you down. And thank you guys all for being here. John, don't... Well, it wouldn't be a Palisades meeting if I didn't ask John to share. Yes, John.
John, I just want to say, first of all, I want to thank you for all the work you've done over the last 11 years. You've more service than anybody I know, and I want to just thank you. But my question is this. Talk about the time that you were in front of the federal judge with all the people in AA in the back of the room.
Well, that was, John asked me about the federal judge. I had 4 felonies for 45 years in prison, and I went to court on February 12th, 07, and you couldn't get in the courtroom because of people from this building and this room. And the letters, which exceeded 100 and some letters that the judge actually read. So if you're in trouble, and I have a friend of mine that got in trouble here.
Talk about what went through your mind today.
I felt like Rod Serling in the Twilight Zone. I wanted to die. And those people were extraordinary. And then I'll close with this. It went on for 2 or 3 hours talking about me, and I felt like I was in some surreal movie. But at one point, Timothy Lannon, who's deceased, like Jonathan Klein, who was also very helpful to a lot of people here, was my attorney, and he got called to the bench or the sidebar, like the Judge O.J. Simpson trial. And the judge said he was complaining that this is a guy that forged all of his own court cards. He's probably not even sober. He's probably paying all of these people to come here. So the judge said, come to the sidebar. And Tim, before he passed, that day he shared this story. He said to the judge, or the judge said, look, I don't want to hear another word about Alcoholics Anonymous. I happen to know that guy's sober. And the U.S. Attorney, Mark Young, who's now a judge in Santa Monica, he got promoted because of me. He said, how do you know he's sober? He says, because I live in Pacific Palisades. My son is an alcoholic, a drug addict, and I gave him a cake at that Sunday meeting where all those people are from. And we're going to stipulate that he's either sober or he's stupid because he gets there every Sunday to make that coffee. He should just go to Brentwood. At the end of the meeting, we won't, so crowded nobody will know that he was there and they'll just sign his card. So we're going to stipulate that he's sober. And I don't want to hear another word about Alcoholics Anonymous. I see that federal judge at Coffee Bean all the time. And we just smile. But there's 3,000 meetings a week here. That's almost impossible that I would go to a meeting where the federal judge's son would change his life, and my life would also change because of the people here.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
So it worked out okay, John. Thank you. John didn't write me when I was in prison. But I did get 1,768 letters that I saved while I was there. Kenny Millen. 310-420-2828. Call him later.
This is what I look like, okay?
I'm on the internet. You can Google me under Bureau of Prisons. So.
My question to you is, with all the years and time and good things you've done in this program, why are you so flighty and can't stand still for 10 minutes? Honestly.
I don't know. I don't have a quick answer to that. I don't know. I like to distract myself. I got sober and I gambled. You know, I was looking for a sex addiction, and the only fucking I got was gambling. I don't have an easy answer to that. I'd like to have some of that money back. Lionel, did you have your hand up? I love you too. Siddiqui.
Surely with all the service that you've done in AA, you must have witnessed some pretty big miracles in other people. Can you tell us about one of the biggest miracles that you've seen in recovery?
Sure. Heather Clay, who used to come here. I'll break her anonymity too. Lionel, I, and Tim, who was the secretary here, went to court, and her bail was $100,000. and facing a mandatory prison sentence for her 6th DUI. It was a felony DUI. I didn't know what a felony was till I learned from experience what a felony is. We went to the courthouse next to LAX, and with Marcia's help, who left early so she didn't have to hear me speak, but she's on the Friendly House board. We were able to convince the prosecutor, Lionel sat on the clear board with Pete, to allow Heather Clay, instead of going to prison, to go to Friendly House for women for a year. She's now married, has custody of her, she has her child back. She had lost custody of her child. She was resigned to going to prison. She believed that she was going to prison. You know, the public defender said, "Who are you guys and why would you care so much?" Well, we had the opportunity to change somebody's life, and she doesn't know I'm speaking, or she probably would have come. But I love Tim and Heather, and I loved their little 8-year-old. I was the child monitor for a while till they told the ex-husband that I was a convicted felon, and he goes, "What the fuck?" I said, "I'm not a child molester, I'm just an alcoholic." Last question. Fuck, Mike White. You wait?
Yeah, I'll wait. Hey, here's the question on how do you deal with resentments?
How do I deal with resentments? First, not very well. Which is, you know, I like quoting Pete, even though when he's not here, you have to survive AA to stay sober. So Colin and Charlie, I have all those quotes. I'll write them down for you. Like, don't date in AA. The odds are good and the goods are odd. I got the top 50 quotes here. Most of my life seems to be Alcoholics Anonymous, so if I really have a problem, I go to a different meeting. Or I leave this meeting early. Or I read page 552. And I do that a lot. These people are extraordinary, but some of them drive me crazy. But I think I love almost everybody. The couple people that aren't here, I don't love them, but I read page 552, which talks about praying for other people for 10 days. Sometimes it takes me 20 days, and it usually works out well. And thank you, Danny, for asking me to speak.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app, to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.